Welcome to Sense of Style. I'm Stuart. 8 seriously underrated fragrances. And when I do a list like this, I get two emotions. The first emotion is frustration because I either really, really respect these fragrances or I just love them. And they don't get the respect that they deserve from FragCom. The second emotion comes from the first. It's curiosity. Like, why? Why are these so underrated? And it usually, like looking at the whole thing, it usually comes down to two things. Number one is marketing. They're not marketed correctly. And number two is just as important. It's timing. Maybe the fragrance is a really high quality, decent fragrance, but it's just not the right time for the release. Maybe it's out of fashion. So I will be talking about the various reasons, if I can come up with them, that the fragrances are not more popular. And I can assure you, though, that these are all really good fragrances that deserve more attention. Fragrance number one, this is YSL EDP, and this fragrance is underrated for one very simple reason. This is a flanker of one of the most successful fragrances in the last 20 years, which is La Nuit de L'Homme. And this has the La Nuit de L'Homme in its name. How do you follow that up? An iconic fragrance? You can't. It's like trying to follow up Lionel Messi at Barcelona. You're just not going to do it. Even you could be one of the greatest soccer players. No, you're not going to do it. We could be one of the greatest fragrances. And I think this is a super high quality fragrance. People just tried it. And they're like, well, it's not as good as La Nuit de L'Homme. But you know what? It's not meant to be as good. I know what they did here with the marketing, right? You've got La Nuit de L'Homme, which is an aromatic. It has a lot of lavender. It's an aromatic cardamom fragrance. So it's a cardamom balm, right? So there's tons of cardamom in this, but they're like, okay, it's got some aromatic notes. It's got sage and lavender, but we're going to tone those down, right? And we're going to pump up the leather and the tonka and go for a sweeter version of La Nuit de L'Homme. It'll appeal to the younger guys. The problem is YSL is not a youthful house. You know, it is more for people that are established, that have a little bit of money. It's kind of pricey. You're not going to get a whole bunch of guys going to, you know, buy YSL fragrances. More like Paco Rabanne has a reputation for being more youthful. If this had been packaged with Paco Rabanne, it would have been phenomenal. It's got great performance. It smells really good. You can't follow up Lionel Messi. You just can't. Fragrance number two, this is Creed's original Santal. And this was Creed's attempt at copying the DNA of a very popular fragrance from like 20 years ago, Mont Blanc Individuel. This is a phenomenal fragrance. The problem is you can't do that. If you're a niche house, don't ever copy a DNA of a designer fragrances, because people are going to do what I did 3 years ago when I tried this for the first time. I didn't have a good nose then. I didn't understand fragrances much. I wasn't a hardcore enthusiast. I smelled this and I thought, you know, it's really nice, but all it is a, you know, more expensive, higher quality version of this. And now that I know a lot more about fragrances, I can understand these like 4 or 5 subtle differences between this and Mont Blanc Individuel that are fantastic. First of all, this is a woody aromatic, right? Woody aromatic, which is nothing really like this, which is people talk about raspberry dryer sheets kind of thing, right? So they do smell similar, but you can pick up the powderiness of the sandalwood here. You can't do that in Mont Blanc Individuel. You can pick up the 4 aromatic notes, the lavender, the rosemary, the geranium. You can pick all that up in this. You know, they do smell similar, but you can't really get that here. This has vanilla and raspberry. It's sweeter. This has subtleties that are just fantastic. It really is worthy of a Creed, but I don't think most people are going to understand and appreciate just how good it is. Fragrance number 3, this is Lacoste White. To me, this is the most versatile fragrance that I've ever tried. And I've tried hundreds of fragrances. It's just perfectly versatile. The problem here, though, is nobody ever goes, oh my God, did you try Lacoste White? It's the most versatile fragrance that ever existed. People just don't get excited about versatility. It's just not something they care to. But here's the thing. At the same time, I think anyone that's got 20 or more fragrances in their collection needs to have a bottle of this, because there's always going to be that time when you're sitting there and you can't make your mind up and you just want to reach for something you can wear in any situation at any time of year. You know you're going to get good, solid performance. That's the time to reach for this. Now, look, Bleu de Chanel is phenomenally versatile as well. The problem is the price. It's like 4 times the price or 3 times the price of this, right? So you don't want to pay that much for something that's versatile. The thing that stands out to me about this is the grapefruit opening. I really like it. It's a nice grapefruit opening. And then you've got cedar and vetiver in the base. There's a little bit of leather as well. There's a white floral. There's tuberose. There's a lot of nice elements to this, but it's just a fragrance that people like. It's just not spectacular, but in a way it kind of is. Fragrance number 4, this is Brut by Fabergé, and this is a fragrance that's kind of interesting because the name Brut at the very beginning was a fantastic name. 1968, no men in North America anyway wore fragrances. It was very, very rare. So if you were going to, you wanted to feel masculine about it, so they called this Brut. That's a French word that means very dry. But in North America, it just sounded like, super masculine, right? So people would buy it anyway. Now, this has been extremely successful, but here's the problem, is that this fragrance should still be very successful, should still be popular, even among younger fragrance enthusiasts, in the same way that Old Spice is. Old Spice is morphed into a whole bunch of different fragrance styles. It kind of kept that name because the name Old Spice, it's not alienating to young people. But Brut has images now of toxic masculinity. And the weird thing is, this is one of the softest fragrances you're ever going to try. Because yes, there is lavender and there is oak moss, right? So it does have a little bit of a barbershop vibe. That's half of it. But the other half is anise. This is tons of anise. And anise is soft, spicy. It is a perfect soft fragrance for men these days who much prefer that aesthetic, that the softness. So I think they would love this if only they would try it and get over the name. So yeah, the name Brut worked for a long time, and now the name Brut is working against this one. Fragrance number 5 is Pacific Rock Moss by Goldfield and Banks. This is a phenomenal, for me, warm weather fragrance that doesn't get a lot of respect, and it's very simple reason. It's a niche fragrance, so it's very expensive. It smells niche. It is much, much cleaner than a fragrance that I compare it to, which is YSL EDP. So it's much cleaner, much better, but this doesn't have niche performance. And it's, between 4 and 5 hours this will last. The projection's great. And for the style of fragrance this is, I think it does a great job. And its appeal is cleanliness. You can make a darker or more herbal fragrance last longer just because it's dirty, but this is so clean. I compared this straight up to YSL EDP, and I prefer this 100% more. Fragrance number 6 is the most disrespected, underappreciated, underrated fragrance on this list. This is Celestial Emir by Paris Corner, and this is a clone of Marc-Antoine Barrois' Ganymede. Now, here's the problem. Ganymede is an icon. It is the fragrance that has been mentioned the most in my comment section. I go on Facebook groups or I go on YouTube, and Ganymede is super hyped. People love it. Now, this is a very good Ganymede clone, but I did a video of this that didn't even get 300 views, right? It just felt flat. I never hear people talking about this. The problem, though, is the fact that this is a damn good clone. Now, I never smelled Ganymede, but Ash from Jensense did a review of this and said after the first 5 minutes, he couldn't tell the difference. That, to me, is a good clone. What I can speak to about this fragrance is the performance is incredibly good. For a relatively fresh, mineral-based fragrance with hints of fruitiness. This gets 8 hours of like tons of projection for what is a clean fragrance for the most part. And the presentation's fantastic too, right? So my experience of it is high quality. And yet Ganymede is hyped to all high heaven. And this is an also ran. That to me tells me that people should start wearing this more. The only thing I can think of is the type of people that buy Ganymede and like Ganymede are not the kind of people that buy clones. Fragrance number 7. Not only is this my favorite fragrance on the list, this is the fragrance that I wore by far the most this summer. This is a fragrance that I look forward to wearing, and that does not happen for warm weather fragrances very much. The problem here, honestly, I don't entirely understand it myself. I guess it's because it came out 10 years ago. Now, everything's super sweet now, but everything was still pretty sweet back then. And this is a smoky, woody fragrance. So, maybe if it had been 20 years old rather than 10 years old, it would have caught on and been popular. It's smoky, woody, as I said. So it has got birch, right? That's a big fundamental. It's got some vetiver to back it up. It's got some incense to back up the smokiness. Then it's got pink pepper, so a little bit of spiciness. It's got mandarin, a little bit of fruitiness. Really good performance. High quality. It's a Givenchy fragrance. Yeah, buy this one. Fragrance number 8. This is Dolce & Gabbana The One Mysterious Night, and this is one of the top 3 designer ouds that I've ever tried. When it comes to oud, it's like Versace Oud Noir. There is YSL M7 Oud Absolu, and this. And I think they're all fantastic. The problem with this one is it was released as a Middle Eastern exclusive. We could get it here, but it was a little bit harder. Now it has been discontinued. It's impossible to get. One of the biggest mistakes that I ever did was not buying this when I had the chance, because it's a super high quality oud. And this one is simpler than the other 2. This one is just a standard oud triangle with rose, saffron, and oud, and amber. Not complicated, just executed phenomenally. And unlike fragrances in the Dolce & Gabbana The One line, the performance on this is very good, both in projection and longevity. It is a damn good fragrance that got overlooked. And, I guess it was marketed to the Middle East because they like oud. Anyway, yeah, I stand by all of these fragrances. Every last one of them. I think they're all good. I think they all deserve more attention. Thanks for watching.